Welcome back to the Enterprise GTM Podcast, your essential guide to cracking the enterprise market and building a business that lasts. In this episode, we're going to have a heart-to-heart with Pavi Ramamurthy. Pavi plays the dueling roles of being both the Chief Information Security Officer and the Chief Information Officer of Blackhawk Network. This is a mini masterclass for startup founders. Pavi walks through how CISOs think, what impresses and frustrates them, and how smart founders can tailor their pitch to get a yes in a world where great tech alone is not enough. If you're a founder hoping to up your game with the next CIO or CSO you meet, you definitely don't want to miss this. All right, super excited to have you here today, Pavi. Pavi Ramamurthy is the global CIO and CSO of Blackhawk Network. So excited to have you. Thank you for joining us for this podcast.
Thank you, Vidya. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, Pavi, let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about Blackhawk Network. What is the business of Blackhawk Network? And also tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, sure. Have you heard of Blackhawk Network before?
I have to say, unfortunately, not. I mean, I did Google up Blackhawk before this podcast. It did sound like a cool company that I should have heard about just because there are so many, like there's BlackRock and Blackstone. So I was thinking, oh, BlackRock. But no, but it's actually, I think it would be pretty helpful to just give a quick primer for our audience too.
It's funny because a lot of people haven't heard about Blackhawk Network, but we are there everywhere in front of your eyes, right? We are the technology behind the gift cards that you buy in a variety of stores, right? You go walk into Target and you want to get a Roblox gift card for your kid, right? So we are a company which connects business with consumers through gift cards, prepaid cards, and digital payments. We were a spin-off from Safeway. The company was founded about 24 years ago, went public, then was taken private by Silver Lake Partners, and we continue to operate today as a Silver Lake private equity company. And I have been with Blackhawk now for a year and a half. It feels like I've been there for 10 years. And, I started off, so I'm a CISO by profession. I've been in the security industry for about 20 plus years and a software developer for the first 10 years of my career. And so I joined Blackhawk as the CISO, but with the CIO role as well. So overseeing not just information security, but corporate technology and business systems. And in the last 6 months, I also have fraud and risk pertaining to gift cards under me. So my team is about 350 people, including, some seasonal workers, and spread across the world.
Wow, fascinating business that is right in front of all of our eyes. And yet
your Amazon, your Starbucks gift cards, your Roblox gift cards, and then all of the engagement solutions. So we have two main lines of businesses, commerce and incentives. If you're working for one of the big companies and you have an engagement or a reward program, you can be monetized via Blackhawk, where you say, hey, I have this many kudos points. How do I actually see it converted into a blender or a Vitamix, right? So you can actually monetize, or even a gift card. I can convert all of these points towards an Amazon gift card and load my balance. It's a pretty cool company and technology. And we also work with state and government. For example, California Lottery or the state of California COVID, right? If you take a COVID shot, we'll give you a $10 gift card for taking a COVID shot. A cool, great way to incentivize people. So that's why the second product line is called incentives.
Nice. I would not have thought that a company that spun off from Safeway is behind all these different things. It was
a very cool ideation from Safeway saying, what can we do to attract customers? And they literally had pegs with some of these gift cards, and then that idea completely took off.
Wow. Fascinating. And just to double click a little bit on Blackhawk Network's business products, key products. So it sounds like, obviously there are these gift cards that you power. And besides moving the money part of it, is there like software component to it? Is it mostly on the back end?
Everything from enabling warehouse printing to shipping to sending the physical cards that you purchase from stores or the digital cards that you get a link or an email, right?
Mhm.
Digital wallets, payment systems. So the core business is to sell and distribute gift cards, and the payment solution behind the scenes, it powers a lot of the technology behind it. If you want to check your balance, if you want to redeem, all of that backend is powered by Blackhawk. And we also have, over the last, I want to say 10 plus years, have done significant acquisitions, which kind of taps into the market leaders in a particular geographical location. So our recent acquisition was Tango Card in Seattle, right, which is an incentives based platform.
Mhm.
Think about it as a holistic payment technology system, which enables businesses to tap into us to then provide what we call a like a digital partner. The digital partner could be the Targets,
Mhm.
right, or the Krogers, which will then sell all these gift cards, and the content partners, which is the Starbucks, the Roblox, the Amazon, right, the content itself, which are then present in these digital partners, the DPs and the CPs, as we call them.
Mhm, mhm. Got it. So I understand the selling and the distribution and everything that is involved in actualizing the gift cards for consumers. What about as part of this, do you also integrate with other payment providers with that other ecosystem out there, like the PayPal, the Visa, all these other?
So we work with Visa and MasterCard, and so they are some of the technology behind us. We work with all the banks as well. And then we do have a couple of banks that are powering our system in the back end.
Got
But
it.
in
Got it.
fact, we also work with, for example, the most of our businesses are geographically distributed across. So there's US based business, there's Canada based business, but also we do talk to our maybe have relationships with all of our other peers and competitors as well. So we talk to them to figure out like industry based best security practices, fraud and risk prevention. So we have a coalition where we talk to all of them.
Got it. Wow. Very, very interesting business. And you
I
have.
also did not know a whole lot before I joined Blackhawk. And so it's a very fascinating, keeps you on your toes, very interesting. And it's pretty rewarding to see the inner workings of just picking up a gift card from the peg as to all the controls that go behind it for
Mhm.
you to be successfully able to use it, redeem it, and then buy something.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think at least I used to take gift cards for granted because it's one of those things which is pretty ubiquitous and you expect it to work,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if it is not expired, you expect it to work. Obviously, it feels pretty bad. You feel cheated when it doesn't work. And then obviously, there's all these frauds and things like that, which I've heard in the news about, especially elderly people getting swindled of their money. I mean, it's scary.
It just
Some aspects of that.
We work tirelessly in the backend to figure out how many controls we can employ proactively. So, you as a consumer, when you go to giftcards.com to buy a gift card, you are rest assured that the card that you're buying will have balance and that you're able to use it. But then there's always other kinds of frauds, right? Like, for example, stolen credit cards that you would use to buy gift cards. And then you can also sell them in the dark web at a
Hmm.
discounted rate. So you want to move the money as fast as possible. So there is no way for someone to kind of block or reclaim the amount on the card. And
Mhm.
so the businesses will incur losses when it's done. So it's our job to make sure that all of these fraud and risk controls are pretty robust on the back end.
I can imagine you're always on your toes here. I think that's a good segue into the topic of your top priorities as a CSO. Maybe
Mhm.
the first part, is just talk about your CSO role and then we can get into your
Sure.
CIO role. Obviously, you have your business priorities, and it's clear, at least as an investor, that most CSOs like yourselves will not look at anything that is not the top two priority, maybe for you at any given time. Just curious to know, outside of how your business priorities influence your CSO priorities, is there like a framework that you would use to
I,
evaluate, is this a startup or a category that I should look at? Could you maybe talk us through a little bit about any framework you might use?
yeah, so all CISOs, I speak for most CISOs, we all base our program and our investment technology process, people, all of it, the people, process, technology on two things like you mentioned, right? Business priorities and what are your current gaps and risks to the organization from a security point of view, right?
Mhm.
So that's always the first thing that any CISO does or inherits a risk register, right?
Yep.
So that's the data. The data doesn't lie, right? So you know what the risks are. You also know year over year what the business priorities are, and you want to map your program. What is available to you out there? What was available to us back in 2020 in terms of technology is very different than what is available today, which is all AI powered, right? That's a variable. The second variable is your own budget, right? And then economic factors like recession, administration, all of those, which also factor into it, right? So, for example, during a recession or during a recession timeframe, the unspoken mandate sent to CISOs are look at return on investment on your current investments, right? Are you doing best of breed or best of suite, right? Do you have the budget to look at up and coming startups?
Mhm.
Are you doing cost optimization and savings and trying to cut some of the solutions which are only giving you 40 to 50% value? There are a lot of factors when it comes to how we think about what to look for. But at any given point in time, what I have to go by is the risks that I have that are stack ranked
Mhm.
with what happens, what is the cost of not doing it?
Mhm.
So that's the question that I always ask, right? What's the cost of not doing something of the risk? What happens when the risk materializes or manifests, right?
Mhm.
And then how do we continue on our program maturity while at the same time executing on business priorities and trying to get a healthy balance between the two? Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes. So it sounds like these things are not set in stone as we sometimes tend to think. Now, clearly, some of the things that you mentioned, you call it the risk register, basically what you
Mhm.
inherit. What you inherit is what you inherit, right? It's not like problems are going to magically go away
No,
overnight. So that's probably
I'm not talking about issues, I'm talking about risks.
Mhm.
And what is the company's threshold for accepting or tolerating those risks? And
Mhm.
that changes,
Yes.
right? The company is like doing phenomenally well and we have a lot of money, or like we know that our program is mature enough, our risk tolerance is different, as opposed to shit, we have a lot of problems, like, we need to fix all of this. So we need to kind of set aside a budget and work on those.
So, given how dynamic your needs are, I mean, not entirely like changing every other day,
No,
obviously, you don't want that.
you don't
But
want.
given how it seems like every now and then you take a step back, you look at, okay, what's happening in the macro environment? What is the maturity of technology? And what is our appetite for risk and maybe internal adoption? So, given that you every now and then seem to be reevaluating what your priorities are, how should a founder, when you meet a founder, a cybersecurity startup founder, what do you wish they ask you about in terms of your priorities that you'd be comfortable answering? And I ask you this question sincerely because founders are not clear how much they
No,
can even
no,
ask CSOs. So
no,
can they ask you your priority?
they should. It's not as black and white answer as I would love to give. Okay.
Mhm.
So here's the thing. Founders typically they have a practiced script in their mind.
Yep.
I have to go through my marketing pitch. I have to go through all of this before I get into the meat of the problem. Most CISOs these days are pretty technical. I'm like, forget all the marketing pitch, forget all this. Let's go into how you're deploying it, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it kind of throws them off because
Mhm.
they have this practiced script. They're like, oh, let me tell you what problem we're trying to solve. No, we get that. We get that. Because you're not the first startup you're talking to, or you're not the first ones in the business. So we understand the problem statement.
Mhm.
So founders need to first ask the question, hey, we are in this domain or we are in this space, right? We would love to pitch to you. Can you help us understand? I'm talking about without an NDA, right? Like to the
Of course.
extent that's the first exploratory conversation. What can you tell us about is this a problem for you? Like
Mhm.
you don't want to waste your time. If I've completely solved this problem, I'm already mature. So then you as a founder, you want to shift your narrative to say, that is so great. Help us understand how you got to that maturity so we can take notes.
Mm.
I think they're also only given 30 to 45 minutes,
Of course.
right?
Yep.
So they need to get through all of the agenda. So, which is why a lot of these cybersecurity events by VCs, it's a great way for founders to kind of pitch an idea, kind of solicit, crowdsource like feedback. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is a problem that you all can resonate with. And then
Mm-hmm.
when they set up the follow up meetings, that's when they ask the question, what does you don't want to be proposing, I mean, I'm making this up, a data center initiative without even asking the question, are you even in the data center or are you on, like, in the cloud?
Yep.
As simple.
Basic qualification
Yeah,
question. You're suggesting founders should ask you that. What you're also saying is that if it turns out that you've already solved the problem, there's probably a thing or two that the founders can learn from you
right.
because they are obviously in the business of
They,
solving problems.
they want to get there, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that really is the first thing. Understanding, hey, let me spend 10 minutes understanding if this is a problem for you and what are you doing currently, right? And
Yep.
then the more confident founders are not probably talking about market value as much as the actual differentiator in their product,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
How is their product different, right?
Yep.
Then there is the realistic aspect of it, right? As a CISO, if I never had this kind of a solution, right? You as a founder, you're in a good place. Oh, there's no incumbent. There's like I'm the only
Yep.
player in this space. Then you as a founder want to ask the question, why are you not even doing this? Then I tell you, oh, this is because this risk is not critical enough for me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Then you as a founder keep changing in real time your pitch and your narrative.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay. What's your appetite for POC, right? We'll explain this to you. This is how we differentiate. This is something that you can get value, right?
Yep.
So that's what they would do.
Yep.
We don't interact like that.
So
Most
you're
often,
a fan of having that dialogue. That's great. I mean, for those founders that are hearing this, I'm sure they'll appreciate the fact that, you're one of those CSOs who gets it, who wants that dialogue and who actually thinks that is a great way for the founders to be doing business with
correct.
you.
There's a much bigger practical aspect to it. If you are displacing another solution,
Mm-hmm.
you as that startup founder, you need to come armed with, here's how I am going to move you from current solution to our new solution. And that is where a lot of things fall through the cracks. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm not saying that's how we think about it,
Yep.
but you need to be, I don't know what the percentage is, but you need to be a lot better for us to consider replacing a current solution with your solution. And I need a seamless way to transfer all the policies, all the configurations that I have done, all the use cases that I have automated. So the reality aspect of it is where most conversations kind of fizzle out, especially when you're replacing. I'm like, okay, great, your solution is great, but you don't have a migration path,
Mm-hmm.
or it's going to take us 1 year before we start to see that 5% incremental value. Is it
Yep.
really worth that?
Yep, yep. This is one point that you're making, which, especially as a VC, I'm in violent agreement with you. Actually, there are like actually, Peter Thiel made this very
Mhm.
popular, this opinion that as a startup, you have to be 10x better than the product, than the
Correct.
incumbent. But in our experience, what we are seeing is exactly for the reasons
Mhm.
that you mentioned, that doesn't cut it. It is not a given that just because a startup has a product that is 10x better than an incumbent, that enterprises will adopt it because there are good enough options that companies have already sunk in their costs and people are already trained and everything is
The
working. Like you
training,
said,
the training is actually quite critical. I'll give you a real time example in
hmm
my current company where we evaluated a product to replace something that we already had. Really
hmm
good. And then we had an event, I mean, not just a regular, the blip.
yep,
And for some reason, we weren't available to act on it.
hmm
But we had trained the folks. They kind of stepped up to come and take care of it themselves, right? The
yep,
engineering team knew exactly what to do. And then my head of product security came to me and said, I want to rethink buying this new solution because look at how long it took us to get them to this point.
yep,
Imagine having to go back to the drawing board and do this all over again. And for what? For what? is the absolute question to ask. So, which is where I feel bad for the founders because I'm bringing a large dose of cynical reality to the table, right? Which is probably not what they want to hear. So we try to kind of tend to strike a compromise where we would do some kind of a design partnering, some kind of a feedback loop, right? But even then, with the macroeconomic environment, we don't have a whole lot of resources to try things out either.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this dose of, I mean, you may consider this to be cynical, Pavi, but it is reality.
Mhm.
And as an investor, I would say it's much better for founders to face that reality sooner than later because the big, just identifying something that is bad or like having a better product than an incumbent is just half the battle, right? I mean, like you've clearly mentioned, it's the whole operationalizing it, the resources that it is going to take for an enterprise like yourself to implement it and then train the people, all that is hidden cost. And founders sometimes
Don't see the cost. They don't.
exactly that, or they would trivialize it. And this is why a lot of startups just don't succeed, or they are in pilotitis, right? Where they are in perpetual design partner pilot mode,
Correct.
which never gets into production.
We will shamelessly take all the free POCs, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's us.
yeah, yeah. Given what you've said, do you like it when a vendor actually, maybe not right in the first 5 to 10 minutes of pitching you something, but do you generally like it when a vendor walks you through what is the overall total cost of ownership, all the way from implementation on is going to look like for their solution? Do you
I
like to know what it takes?
would love to know what it takes. And my request to the startup founders would be this, which is you know your product well.
Hmm.
You know the differentiation. You can probably talk to the 10x differentiator and all of that, right? Because that's your forte, right? So you can talk about that. And you probably also know as to who your competitors are and how you, and that's the differentiation that comes into play.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is invest more time and effort in, okay, oh, you said you use X. Here's a timeline where we can seamlessly move you from X to Y, right? And
Hmm.
we can help support it. Or with X dollars built into professional services cost, we can help work with the migration rather than say, okay, you purchased a new solution, here's your 30, 60, 90, whatever, and then you guys go migrate all your data. So hand holding until it's fully assimilated into the new solution. It takes us about, and I'm not kidding, 2+ years to see the ROI on a new vendor implementation. Take
Wow.
anything, right? Vulnerability management, because we are deploying it, we are tweaking the configuration, we add
Yep.
users, we have to train them how to do it, we have to train ourselves how to look at it. Then
Yep.
we have all these connectors, right? That we need to connect. Then we start to look at the results, then we need to tweak the results. So by the time we get to a state where we say, hey board, hey ELT, look at the value add, it's
Hmm.
2 years. And this the fatigue does set in. So which is why if something is working and if it's giving me 80%, I'll go with 80% unless that 80% is like a risk that I need to fill in the other 20.
Hmm. The cost of not doing, adopting a
Cost
new
of not
solution
doing so. That's the
overweighs.
first question I always ask. Like, what is the cost of not doing this?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we do see, I mean, that's the pessimistic view of it. The optimistic view of it, we do see some very cool technologies and vendor startups that are like phenomenal. And we do give them the time. We do POCs, we do design partnering.
Hmm.
And if that's a case that we think that, hey, this is going to cut down employee or it's going to increase employee productivity by X%, it's going to make our security vulnerability management so easy that we can use NLP to ask questions to get answers back.
Hmm.
Those are absolute investments worth doing,
Hmm.
right? Where we look at our existing talent and skill set and the sheer number of backlog tasks, and here's a solution that can automate most of it. So it's the automation, it's the agentic AI, it's the AI powered solutions which make our job easier and
Hmm.
could get us results faster than what a human can do
Hmm.
with much more detail and clarity. Those startups we'll always consider, right? But if there's already 10 players in one space and you are the 11th player,
Yep.
my first question is like, why? right? No,
it's
what?
it's our
I'm sure there's a reason, right? I'm sure that they have a reason to why they thought that being another player and competing against the giants is a good idea. And maybe they're only for SMBs. I don't know. I mean, there should be a reason. And I would love to understand like what.
That's what you and I hope, Pavi, but it's often the case that nobody knows the reason, oftentimes including the founders. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed this too. I mean, security in particular is so notorious for being a breeding ground for so many Me Too companies. And sometimes, it's not the founder's fault. Two, five, 10 people, all
Yeah.
of them equally smart in different parts of the world.
Right? They
Sometimes your
are.
own neighbor, they come up with the same idea, they get funded, and that's what you end up with.
But here's the Me Too. I mean, that's a great comment. But here is what I, as a CISO, would rather do, which is, you have the 20% that I don't have,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that this incumbent is already working on the 20. I would rather just let them
Stick with the incumbent because they'll give.
and have them catch up,
Mhm.
right, rather than shift.
Yeah, yeah, totally. This is obviously the thing that a lot of startups have to fight the uphill
I
battle
feel
with an
bad.
incumbent.
Oh, I feel so bad for them because these are some of them are really, really young, smart, like wicked smart people who have these beautiful ideas. But anything that is the standard, this solution replaces the other solution, and the differentiation is not obvious, or sometimes they do a poor job of marketing the differentiation. And this is where some of the CISOs will help them say, no, change your pitch. And I've done this a lot, which
Hmm.
is change your pitch. Know your CISO, right?
Yep,
KYC, right? Know your CISO.
yep,
I,
100%. And
right?
yeah, and even so, Pavi, as I'm sure you've seen, pick any category where there is a problem worth solving. It's inevitable that we will eventually end up with like at least 10 different startups which seem to be having equally similar products and smart people, whatnot. So as a CISO, I'm curious to know how do you like you can't do 10 POCs at the same time. Let's say you are in the market for one
Yes.
of these products. How have you typically approached it?
I cheat. So I go and ask my CISO community.
Hmm.
That's what I do. So I don't know if the founders realize how much of a tight knit community we have, whether it's within the US or even a global CISO community. Most of us CISOs are in multiple CISO forums. And so I would just simply go and ask, I have a problem with IAM. I won't even say I'm talking to this vendor, right?
Mhm.
I need to solve this problem. I would actually go put the problem there.
Mhm.
What are you all using? I get so much phenomenal feedback there.
Mhm.
And if I tally the votes,
Mhm.
and if I see a majority of them are picking this solution, and they even give me the pros and cons of, oh, I was with this, then this went wrong, so I went to the other one.
Wow.
Almost all of us go back to the seats. I am considering, and then we would even ask, I'm considering this, but they are too new. So I'm worried about, and let's say, I mean, I'm making these things up. They are an AI company. I'm worried how I can define the guardrails, or even something as practical as the company is only like 10 people. What do we do when there is a problem? They probably don't even have the insurance for a breach of contract or like
Yep.
data exposure. Like we ask all those questions, like what would you suggest that we do? So most often times when there is a dilemma on, hey, should we, this looks interesting, let me go find out, has anyone? And if the CISO community says, I've never heard of this vendor before,
Mhm.
so then we wait.
Gotcha. Wow, this is obviously customer references. These are
Yeah.
king.
Yeah.
And
There is
again,
no
co-founders.
There is
Yep.
no pitch in the CISO community, and that's the unspoken rule. No one is pitching anything. They're just coming to the table with just their own data and facts,
Yep.
or sometimes poor sales, right? I
Yep.
love the product. Their sales team sucks.
Mhm.
So, like, be careful if you're dealing with a so and so. So then we know, okay,
Yep.
why penalize the product for sales?
100%. And when you're getting that feedback, Pavi, are you also looking for CSOs of a similar company size or people in similar sectors? Like, let's say, there are a bunch of people working on, maybe they're technology
Not no,
companies.
not for
You
sales.
don't care that much
Not
about
really.
the
Not
industry.
really.
And
But it is
yeah.
good. It is good to get that as well
Mhm.
because some products innately only scale so much,
Mhm.
right? And they also, I mean, we can also ask them, right? Hey, how big is your team? How big is your org? Are you deploying this to your entire org? Is this an enterprise wide solution? Or are you targeting a particular sector or a business unit? So for most security solutions, if you think of an endpoint detection solution or a firewall, there are only so many players, right? So
Mhm.
regardless of the size, that isn't as much of a consideration, but it would factor in our follow up questions. But 100% every single time it's been one for one, right?
Hmm.
It's like, throw a dart out there and see what comes back. And I always have been hugely benefited from those kind of conversations with the CISO community. And they would also put you in touch, right? Hey, I
Yep.
had great experience. They would bring new, or without even asking the questions, they would just say, hey, I had a great experience with this vendor.
Hmm.
Deployment was easy as heck, and we were ready to go within 2 months. And so that's like, oh, okay.
That's an amazing testimonial every startup should kill for.
Correct. And they half the start most of the startups don't even know that we have this internal channel where we share all of this information.
Yeah. Now, just curious to know, since you wear the CIO role, do you have a similar community that you tap into for any of your
Not
CIO
as much.
problems?
Not as much. I'm starting to see a lot of CISOs taking on the CIO mantle as well in the last few years. So
Interesting. Why is that, you think?
it's so much easier. It's just so much easier rather than argue with your peer in IT to get a security control baked in. I'm not saying that organizations should be the reason why those things don't work, but it's just
Mhm.
so much easier when I can have both my IT and security in the same channel and have them seamlessly as one team work towards deploying a solution that is inherently secure. But most of these, so back to my point, most of these CISO communities also have an IT sub group within them. And so they talk about it in that same, which is why I'm seeing a larger proliferation of CISOs who are now taking on additional IT responsibilities.
Got it. So it sounds like even for some IT related topics, you could tap into the same network.
100%, 100%. Because most of the, if you think about an Okta, then you say, hey, it's an identity provider. But then you think about it as identity and access management. You're
Yep,
talking about security governance. You're talking about user access, privileged access management. So security and IT are so tightly integrated, right? So,
absolutely.
and IT is the one who's deploying all your security solutions as
Yep,
well. So
yep.
it has never made sense to me why those two organizations have always been separate in the past, but I see very few instances, or at least there's a really good synergy between the two organizations, even if they have a CISO and a CIO.
Interesting. And especially now, this is very timely, right? Given that so many enterprises are either adopting or are talking about adopting AI applications. So there's a bunch of tools that end users use, or they want to bring in new Gen AI based applications. So the topic that I wanted to ask you about is what some people are beginning to call shadow AI.
Right. Yeah.
We've been here before, right? I mean, we saw this with the expansion of SaaS tools, and you've been a technologist and security leader here long enough. You've seen that. What are some lessons that you've learned from your time in SaaS and having come through that evolution that you think now should apply to AI too? Like, what has changed?
I
What
mean,
is still the same?
I don't see, and this may not be the right answer, but I don't see it any different than a third party solution, right? So if you did third party risk management very well, it happens to be an AI solution that you're talking about, right? Policing only gets you to a certain point because the more you police or the more you try to govern and the more you try to control, they're going to find other ways to do this. So, shadow AI, shadow IT is
Mhm.
still a huge problem, but how far should the organization go and curb employee productivity or their innate curiosity to bring
Mhm.
new technologies to the table is always going to be a tough question to answer. Because, on one hand, I have the CIO hat saying, let's enable as much cutting edge AI technology. Let's kind of crowdsource all these ideas. Let's bring
Yeah.
the set of solutions to the company. On the other hand, my CISO hat is like, oh my God, there's like just so many things. How am I going to put guardrails around all of these things? What should I tell my SOC team? And then I have my security team, like, screaming, no, 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 right?
And you have both parts sitting inside the same
Same,
brain fighting with
same
each
head.
other. Yeah.
So what would you do? And this is where I have learned in my last 1.5 years how to take on, because previously, if you were just a CISO, and I think that is changing too,
Mm-hmm.
you're always thinking just the security implications and aspects of it. But when you have the CIO aspect of it, or like, the evolution of a CISO,
Mm-hmm.
it's now thinking about business productivity, business needs, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like, are you holding yourself back because your security measures are so stringent and so rigid
Mm-hmm.
that you're not letting your team progress? So I think that's where there is a very delicate balance where you can create isolated island sandbox environments for them to go and test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this way, you are shifting that accountability to you, the engineer, or you, the person who is invested in a solution, to say, you're responsible, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go test in the safe environment, you capture everything, and come tell us the results. That's an approach I'm starting to take because it's a little hard for me, to be very honest, because some of these AI companies are really, really new.
Mm-hmm.
They're very small. I don't know enough about, hey, are you using our data to train your models? Oh, no, no, we are not. But I don't know how to test that,
Verify that. Yep.
right? With AI, it is so fast that I need to learn how to keep up with what kind of abuse testing should I be doing? How should I train them? How does it? I'll give you a very classic example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before AI, you would have to go in and look for a document on G Drive or OneDrive or SharePoint.
Mm-hmm.
With AI, you can just ask it a question and it will return all the answers in milliseconds. And if I did not set document permissions right on the document, you're going to see a lot of documents that you shouldn't have access to,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But before AI, you would never know that such a document existed. So
100%.
this is where we as CISOs and CIOs, we want to be able to test this in a safer thing and then use AI and all of this as a means to then tighten our own policies.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying we don't have the luxury of time because technology is moving fast, others are moving fast,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to be able to keep up and at the same time deliver it in a secure manner and
Yep.
be able to answer all the questions when the board and the executive leadership team asks us, are you sure this is safe? I think so.
I've tested it in my sandbox environment and
Yeah,
we've uncovered a bunch of scenarios where we needed,
yeah,
we
but
fixed it. We
you
fixed
never
it.
know, right?
Yeah, you're right.
But
The
that's
corner cases.
but that's the hardest part about my job, which
Yeah.
is where is that trade-off and where do I take a risk-based decision
Mm-hmm.
and where do I, because the easiest thing for any of us to do is to shift the risk back to you, the business owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. You really want to use this AI thing? Are you going to sign up for the risk? It's unfair. It's an unfair
Mm-hmm.
question to ask because we know what the risks are and we just don't have the time to do it. So, how do we balance time and need and outcomes and deliverables all the time in a full bubble of a security or force field? Yeah.
Yep, yep, 100%. There's actually a topic I put a pin on earlier on. I'm just coming back to that because I think it'd be good to double click on this. You mentioned a while back, earlier on, you said best of breed versus best of suite. You said, like, especially in tough financial times,
Mhm.
your leadership typically asks you those kinds of questions
It's the
like the
best of, it's a no
so,
brainer.
so could you unpack that a little bit? Like,
It's a very easy numbers game,
okay,
right? So if Vidya, you're offering commodity A, B, and C for a discounted price, if I buy B and C, you're going to give me a discounted price across all three. And because you're a big enough organization that you can lock in the price for me for the next 3 years,
that is best of suite.
that is best of suite. Correct.
Mm,
Whereas the best of breed, I would have to take commodity A from Vidya, commodity B from Pavi, commodity C from Jane Doe, and then the cost all adds up. The everything adds up, right? Three different contracts, and then three different security reviews, and sometimes we will go with the best of suite, right? But we now ask ourselves the question, and we also don't like to put all our eggs in one basket. So that's another rule of security, right? You don't want to dump everything in one with one vendor
yep.
and for it to kind of backfire on us. So there is no formula as such. It really is dependent on the solution that we are buying, right? And also keep in mind, and this may sound silly, the bigger companies like the Amazons, the Microsoft, they have a lot more money to back that, whether it's features, whether it's incident response, whether it's even a breach, right? They have a lot more to be able to support those cases as opposed to a small and upcoming company, which is probably best of breed, but doesn't have that support.
Yep, yep. That's why they used to say nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. So pick
Exactly.
your favorite big security vendor.
Right. And with all of these acquisitions and consolidation, like for example, the Slack purchase by Salesforce, LinkedIn by Microsoft, where I was actually working at LinkedIn during the time Microsoft acquired us. So I would go to Seattle with my boss, with my CISO, to go
Uh-huh.
have those conversations. And then you wonder, okay, what's going to happen to this product now,
Hmm.
right? Is it going to be consumed into the bigger conglomerate, or is it going to be running separately? So this just, I think we can be part lawyers too, CISOs.
All right. If you have more space in your
No,
brain.
I don't have space, but like it's not like,
Uh, all right. So we've reached the very end of this conversation. This last section is going to be a few rapid fire questions
okay,
for you, Pavi.
okay.
Okay. So feel free to keep the answers as brief as you want, or if you want to throw in an explanation, feel free to. So, what is the one thing that people most underappreciate or misunderstand about your role?
Not anymore, but I've had people ask me security, so is it physical security?
Mm. Is it? Is it not?
That's a very dangerous question to ask because
Okay.
those are very tone about that answer. But I don't think my job is underappreciated. They do understand the nuances of it. They don't understand how overwhelming it is.
Hmm. Gotcha. That was my next question, which you've answered. The hardest thing about your role
Is
sounds
to keep up, right? So I definitely go to bed every day praying that everything is okay with my company, that
Mhm.
nothing has happened in the global ecosystem that would make an impact. And then the first thing is everything okay when you wake up in the morning? So
Mm.
it's a constant pressure, but I'm also a glutton for punishment because I can't seem to walk away from.
So, what is the fun aspect of your job then, if there is any?
I would say that events like RSA, meeting all of these startup founders, and they're going to think, does she really mean it after like this?
After all this.
No, but I do really mean it because we get front row seats to actually see how their minds work and look at technologies that they are working on, cool ideas that we feel that we are playing a part in that, right? Giving
Yeah,
them those pitch ideas, marketing decks, or even features that they should be thinking about. And sometimes when I see the light bulb go, because I'm like, okay, you are very focused on this one aspect, but here you can also do this. And they're like, oh, okay, we didn't think about it. That's very rewarding.
that's
And
exciting.
that's fun. Yeah. And when
Awesome.
it happens in restaurants, it's even more fun because over drinks, when we are discussing something, it's a lot more fun.
Of course, of course. Okay, so this next one is we've all been there, implemented some product, but it just didn't deliver. Without naming vendors, could you name maybe some category from the past which you had implemented, but it completely flopped?
I don't think I have an example of a product that completely flopped. If anything, I would say static code analysis, vulnerability management, there's always evolution that's happening there. So what worked years ago, 10 years ago doesn't work today. And this is the trap that we ourselves like fell into, which is going from one platform to another and then overhauling all of our, because those are the ones that are from for a security perspective, that's the one that's closest to the code, right?
Sure.
So end of the day, like I tell my leadership, my job is done if I can prevent all breaches from happening. Those are table stakes for me, right?
Yep, yep.
And the table stakes is what I always look at.
Mhm.
Everything else is an addition, refinement, maturity, investment, innovation and all of it. But at the very baseline is if I can protect the company from any security incidents, my job here is done.
Nice. What's the most overhyped security trend today in your
Oh,
view?
AI.
AI. All
Yeah,
right, that was easy and
yeah.
fast.
That was easy because I don't think we all clearly understand the pros and cons of AI fully. But
But you jumped into it nevertheless.
oh well, you will be left behind in the rat race if you're not, right?
Yep, yep. Not a choice there. What is one cybersecurity resource you cannot live without?
Cannot live without. Oh, I can totally live without any of these things.
All right.
There's a couple of hacker communities. I actually, believe it or not, I rely on LinkedIn for a lot because I'm part of a lot of groups and forums and communities. And the more you subscribe to, I subscribe to most of the vendors themselves, right? So I see cool announcements and whatnot. So I would say use LinkedIn to subscribe to any of these, including testimonials. And I love these hacker communities and the CISO society, CISO community forums, podcasts that I can hear from the CEO, right, of a security company. So
All right. All those founders, I hope you're listening.
go there and make a splash.
Yeah. All right. Last one. If you had a magic wand and if you could fix one cybersecurity problem, Pavi, what would that be?
I would say if you give me a magic wand, I would want to do a lot more than just one problem, but I would love to have a definitive answer and a source of truth for asset management. For me, that is where everything starts, right? Because when you have risks, you apply them to assets,
Mm-hmm.
and having an absolute universal source of truth for assets. And when I say assets, it's everything, right? Your ephemeral assets, your cloud assets, data center, your endpoint devices, your servers,
Mm.
your phones. Like, what does an employee have? What does an application have? Where is it hosted? I would love to have that. I would go fix that, because then that is for me the genesis of all of my programs, because they will all tie back into an asset.
Yep, yep. You get a sense for what is my
What is
attack surface?
the ecosystem, right?
Yep.
Anything and everything. Hey, how good is your vulnerability management program? Oh, you're at 80% containment. Okay, what's your coverage? I don't know, right? I think it is this, right? So
Mhm.
having that saying, hey, we are 80% of this landscape, this is scoped out, this is in purview, that would be great.
That sounds pretty foundational to me.
It
That's,
is, right? You
yeah,
would
100%. Yeah, I mean, like, if I'm trying to protect something, I mean, the first thing I would want to know is what is it that I'm trying to protect?
wrong. We all have asset management. We all have our notion of an asset inventory. But I would love to understand any founder, any CISO who has done this, which is the confidence code behind your asset inventory. How confident are you that it is accurate and at least 95% correct?
Hmm.
I'm not there yet, but I would love to. That.
Awesome. Well, Pavi, this was a fantastic conversation. A lot of learnings for me. I'm sure for others too from this. Really, really enjoyed having
When do
this
you think the
conversation.
chances are that an asset management solution will hit me up? I hope so.
I think there's a 50-50 chance. I don't like to take too many risks about this question in particular. So, yeah, I will make sure to get the word out for sure. Uh,
Thank you so much for having
oh,
me.
thank you. Thank you, Pavi.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Enterprise GTM Podcast. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on your favorite podcast platform so we can continue to help enterprise founders thrive.